Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 71. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday, Steelers Nation, as we are getting ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers' very meaningful regular season finale against the Cleveland Browns Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully not the last game for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season, although we'll just have to see what happens. But Dave, so much to talk about today. How you doing?
Doing good. Happy Friday here, week 17. I would have never thought week 18, Friday, we'd be having some of the conversations that we're having here. And really, I don't know if you listened to my terrible take yesterday there. Kind of I'm reviewing the Steelers season, so to speak, and really more specifically the job that Mike Tomlin has done here. I tweeted, I've said several times that this team somehow manages to get into the playoffs. They need to build a statue when it comes to Mike Tomlin, but within the same breath, after all this team has been through, if they don't win on Sunday against the Browns, then we're back to right exactly where we both picked this team to be at 8-9 and a Tomlin's first losing season. And there's no way that I don't think you can, put lipstick on the pig there. So has indeed this, looking at Tomlin's job performance in 2022, has it indeed come down to this last game against the Browns, a team that is out of it, that, they're still a good team. Make no mistake about it. It's kind of, as we joke, their Super Bowl, so to speak, but you're the way you're, the team on the upswing right now, you're supposed to win this game. Now, obviously you can't control what happens, to get you in the playoffs. And, the obvious reaction to that is, well, don't get yourself in a situation where you have to rely on that. But all of that aside, does Tomlin's job performance for 2022 and how it's graded really come down to this game, Alex?
To a degree, at least in the historic perspective of obviously, keeping that streak alive, although neither of us are huge fans of that streak in terms of all the recognition it gets. It's not Pittsburgh's judge, but we understand the historic nature of it. I think it's going to be weird no matter what happens. Weird if they get all the help they need, they make the playoffs. It's going to be weird if they have their first losing season. It'll be maybe even weirder if they win and don't get in. And you're just kind of sitting there with this weird, had a really good finish and yet, staying at home for the postseason. So I don't know how this thing's going to go. But as you said, it's pretty wild just to be in this position, in this conversation at 3-7. I don't think anyone outside of maybe Tomlin and maybe not even everyone in that locker room expected this team to be 8-8 after that 3-7 position when they lost to the Bengals. Right.
And by no man, look, celebrating, hooray, a non-losing season, you didn't make the playoffs. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But let's face it, at least from my perspective, and I know yours as well too. I thought this was an 8-9 team, and at the time of even making that preseason prognostication, I thought, man, was I too rich by a game, And then when you got to what this team was at 2-6 at the bye, I'm really starting to think, oh man, how much did maybe I overshoot this, thinking this was 8-19? But look, here we are. 8-8. A legitimate chance to go 9-8. Let's face it. I know the percentage, the chances to make the playoffs is way low here, but the reality and the plausibility of when you look inside of each game, the other two games that's going on, there's a real plausible aspect to this team making the playoffs. So it is a weird thing where you don't want to celebrate 9-8 and all, but I guess long story short, I'm real impressed at the turnaround of this team and the fact that here we are in week 18, we're talking about, potential playoff here.
And I think back to the conversation we had around the bye where we both sat there and said, this team's going to be better the second half of the season. I think you picked them to go 5-4. I picked them to go 4-5. They've exceeded those expectations. So I think even in that 2-6 moment at their lowest point, getting blown out by the Eagles, we both knew there's going to be a better second half of the year. Watt comes back, a more favorable schedule, etc. But I don't think either of us, or at least myself, didn't see this team going on this type of a run.
Right. And even before the season, we said the first half of the season is going to be, and this was before even Watt went down, saying, man, it's going to be a tough road in that first half of the season there, but that in the second half of the season, that's when we would expect them to win games. And, once again, here we are with the chance of this team going 9-8, which would be one game better than what we thought they would be. And damn, if they get into the playoffs, obviously, you would be then searching to eliminate the fact that they hadn't won a playoff game in all those years. And boy, it would be a tall task regardless of who they play in the first round, because, it would, at this point, I think it would either be the Chiefs or the Bills, right? If they did get into the playoffs there, but I don't know. I just, I don't want to frame it too rosy here, but, and once again, I do really think that it comes down to whether or not this team wins on Sunday as to how we look back at the season. Because once again, if they're 8-9 and the other things happen that would allow them to get into the playoffs, it's hard to frame that as, oh, well done, Mike Tomlin. But in the same breath, they go 9-8, and if they do get in, or even if they don't get in, I just think, this team wasn't very good to start the season.
Sure. And really, when this team was 2-6, our whole thought was the rest of the season's about Kenny Pickett, the young guys on this team, how they progress, how they grow, and what you can take into 2023, regardless of how the rest of 2022 finished out. And obviously, you've seen Pickett make big strides the last 2 weeks, the Ravens game especially. And so really, regardless what happens, of course, you want to win, you want to get in the playoffs, etc. But regardless, you feel like you have a good foundation laid with him and Najee's health and better play, the offensive line improving, George Pickens, etc., to carry you into 2023. So we're still watching this one very closely. Frankly, in terms of all the legs that have to happen for Pittsburgh to get in, maybe the hardest one is for Pittsburgh just to beat the Browns. I mean, the Jets game we'll talk about, there's a lot of quarterback rotation there. The Steelers' fate may rest in the hands of Joe Flacco right now. We don't even know, but you feel like Buffalo's got a good shot to beat the Patriots, the Dolphins. They got their own quarterback issues. Maybe the biggest challenge of those three prongs for Pittsburgh to get in is just taking care of business this Sunday.
Right. And once again, boy, the conversation that we would be having Monday morning if those other two games go to Steelers' way, but they lose to the Browns.
Yeah.
I mean, we're having, once again, that's why I say you got to be careful with kind of framing this, because I literally think that it comes down to how you judge this, the job that Mike Tomlin has done this season down to one game, and that's Sunday at Acrisure against the Browns.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point overall. So before we get into more news of the day, I want to mention we have our friend Scott Petrak on a little bit later in the show, Browns writer for the Chronicle Telegram and Medina Gazette, also brownzone.com. You can find him there. So we talk about Deshaun Watson, about the recent news on Jadeveon Clowney, get his perspective on the Browns and a prediction for this game. But before we do all of that and get into the Steelers injury report here, let's talk about the news that happened yesterday, late last night. The NFL officially announcing it is canceling the Bengals-Bills game on Monday night. Will not be resumed, will not be made up at any point this season. The first canceled game since 1935 for the NFL. They've outlined the long list of playoff changes that generally don't change the needle too much for Pittsburgh's situation. We could talk about, Buffalo and their incentives to play in this one. Maybe there's a little bit extra incentive for Buffalo this weekend. But, talking about the host of changes there, there is no 18 playoff that was floated, which I think was just kind of idle speculation yesterday anyway. And then also want to mention the most important news here, they're really encouraging developments and news on Damar Hamlin, who is still in the ICU, still in, I think, critical condition, but his condition has improved greatly. He's apparently awake, responsive, communicating with friends and family and teammates. And so that is just fantastic news there on Damar Hamlin.
Absolutely, it was, and it was kind of surreal, kind of watching all that. And you have, I think people can find either on YouTube or the Bills channel, or find that whole press conference that the doctors gave and all like that on Thursday morning. It does sound, I mean, beyond. Look, he it sounds like he's going to make it, right? First and foremost, and even beyond that, it really sounds like he's going to be okay. And it's obviously way too early to talk. Well, here's it sounds like maybe his breathing tube might come out here pretty soon and all. And it's, don't want to put the cart before the horse about his NFL career and all like that. But it does sound like, maybe there is some chance that, obviously into next year, maybe he can resume his career. But I thought it was just, they said that, trying to communicate because of the tube that he had, that he was having to write down and communicate that when he wanted to know whether or not his team won that game. And their response to him, boy, somebody was cutting onions in my house. They said, yeah, Damar, you won at the game of life, or kind of paraphrasing that there. So really, kudos all the right way around to, the medical staff on the field and the assistant trainer and them giving him the CPR and, how he was treated once he got to the hospital. I mean, I think obviously all of that played a factor there, but this thing was looking very, very grim for a little bit there, right? On Monday night there, and obviously the first 24 hours or what have you. And I think it was really, really great news about him, obviously on Thursday there. And so hopefully there'll be more of that to come. And as far as the league goes and the decision, we didn't want to speculate too much about what may or may not happen on that last show, other than the fact that I was just resigned to the fact, and maybe it's, me being a little naive there, but I was resigned to the fact that they would do the right thing here. And looking at it now, I mean, is it perfect? It was never going to be perfect.
Sure.
But I think obviously the decision to not resume that game, I think was the right call. And then, the options or the scenarios that they've laid out for the owners to vote on today, that they got together with the competition committee and all on that. I mean, once again, there's no perfect way to do this. However, I think it's the next best. I think it's the best scenario out. It's better than anything I could have dreamed up. And look, the whole 8 added the extra team. I don't think they should have went that way. And yeah, that would have helped the Steelers, immensely had they done that. But I don't think you change how many teams get in because of what happened there. I think you just manipulate kind of what they did. With the home AFC champ, because there obviously are scenarios here where maybe none of that will come into play there, with right. The coin flips and all like that, but I think they did it the best way possible, and that's the way I'll leave that.
Yeah, it's funny, since we were just talking about it before, just before 10 a.m. here, that according to Shams, that the breathing tube, as you mentioned, is out of Damar Hamlin. He's now breathing fully on his own, which is just remarkable progress he's made here in such a short time span. So that is, again, the most important news remains our focus. But for the NFL side of things, I think they've handled it generally really well. I think canceling the game, deciding not to make up the Bengals-Bills game is unequivocally the right decision. Trying to somehow fit this game into the schedule, that would have created so much disruption. There really was no appetite for, I think, the Bills or Bengals to finish that game out. I personally would have just made it a bit more simple when it comes to the playoff seeding, and just say go by win percentage, seed the teams by win percentage, and that's how you do that essentially, and play the rest of the thing like normal, regardless of neutral sites and coin flips. Get rid of all that. But I think generally speaking, the league has tried to make this as fair and equitable as possible. Not going to be 100%. Bengals fans have some gripes, and that's fine. But they're both in the playoffs. You deal with it, and I think the NFL has generally gotten it right.
And then look, I hate to turn this back and say, let's look at how all this impacts the Steelers. First and foremost, the Steelers have got to get in, and it begins with them winning on Sunday against the Browns there. But second, I know a lot of people were probably concerned with the way the schedule already was with the Chiefs playing on Saturday. If the Chiefs beat the Raiders, how would that impact? Had things gone normal on Monday night, and let's say the Bills would have won that game, yada, yada, how would that have impacted how the Bills played on Sunday against the Patriots based on what the Chargers did on Saturday versus Raiders? Well, as a result of the way this is laid out now, it really does, at least on the surface, appear like win, lose, or draw by the Chiefs on Saturday, that the Bills still have a lot to play for. If the Chiefs lose on Saturday, that gives you a lot of motivation to play at that point to get the number one seed, a home field advantage. Number two, if the Chiefs win their game, then if the Bills win their game against the Patriots, they prevent having to go to KC to play in the AFC Championship, assuming both teams got that far there. So, you're basically guaranteeing yourself a neutral field spot in the AFC Championship game, which would be the next best thing to have a home field advantage in that game there. So, correct me if I'm wrong. It certainly does sound like the Bills, regardless of what happens with the Chiefs on Saturday, will have a lot to play for on Sunday against the Patriots. And prior to this manipulation of the playoff schedule, I don't think it was as cut and dry as that.
Correct. I think the Bills have a bit more to play for now. My feeling was, and I didn't consider it too much, obviously, but I felt like the Bills, regardless, would have probably been playing their starters in Week 17, even if, let's say, none of this happened and the Bengals-Bills game, played on, and who knows how that one would have turned out. But even if the Chiefs would have won on Saturday and the Bills, could not get the 1 seed, they still would want to have the 2 seed and make sure that they were going to have a home game for, the wild card game and the divisional game, and just make sure that's all secured and locked in. So I don't know if it changes their calculation too terribly much. But yeah, I think, there's a little extra to play for. We would expect the Bills to play their starters and not bench guys. And that's a good thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, again, need the Patriots to not win this game.
And I guess, once again, too, if the Bengals lost, regardless of what happens to the Chiefs, if the Bills lost to the Patriots and the Bengals beat the Ravens, they could lose the number 2 seed, right?
Buffalo could, right? That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Right. So I think, regardless of trying to reverse engineer this whole thing, I don't think the Bills' calculation changed much, but I think this kind of cements an extra incentive for them to play their starters. And I think, even if this hadn't come up, I think Buffalo's going to play their starters regardless, and kind of a do it for DeMar Hamlin sense of it all. And so whenever they spoke at their press conference yesterday, the Bills did, with Sean McDermott and Josh Allen, even before the NFL made this announcement about all these proposals and likely changes, there was no indication in my mind that they were going to rest their starters in this game.
All right. So really, and obviously, what the hell's going to happen in that Jets-Dolphins game? Mike, what's his last name? Mike White. Showed up on the injury report and didn't do a media session yesterday. So that kind of calls his ability into question. That other quarterback that played in the game against the Jaguars is on the practice squad. And I guess there's nothing that says they couldn't elevate him and start him. And then there's Joe Flacco. And then, there's some kid over there named Zach Wilson too, over there. So who knows which way that's going to go. And then there's a lot of questions on the other side of what's going to happen at quarterback with the Dolphins there. So an interesting weekend ahead when it more so when it comes to that Dolphins versus Jets game than really the Bills versus the Patriots game.
Yeah, I think in terms of things that you would have confidence in, there are no guarantees in the NFL, and the Patriots are fighting for their playoff lives, so they have every reason to play as hard as possible in this game. But you would expect the Bills to beat the Patriots. What do you expect more, the Steelers to beat the Browns or the Jets to beat the Dolphins? Because this Jets game is shaping up right now. We don't know for sure, but it's shaping up towards Joe Flacco versus Skylar Thompson.
Yeah, look, this is a team that the Steelers have had trouble with in the Browns that can run the football. And, you obviously got Deshaun Watson and they got some receivers over there. And I guess long story short, I like the chances of the Jets beating the Dolphins more so right now than the Steelers beating the Browns, I guess, just by a little bit, but that's the way I would lean.
Yeah, I think it just hard to project that Jets Dolphins game right now. And even if we know the quarterbacks are, it's just such a grab bag of what kind of quarterback are you going to get on that particular day. I said Thompson did okay in relief of Bridgewater in that Patriots game. That pick was a little bit more on Tyreek Hill, I think, than it was on Skylar Thompson. And for the Jets, if it's not Mike White, I hope it's Flacco. I hope it's not Zach Wilson because I don't trust Zach Wilson to lead the Jets to victory.
I could see Joe Flacco having that kind of last hurrah Charlie Batch moment, because
Sure.
Let's face it, Flacco's not long, right? He might even retire after this season. What a way it would be to go out for him to get a win against the Dolphins, as a starter and knocking them out of the playoffs and having a hug on the side with, I don't know who he would hug over there. I guess Robert Saleh or something. Probably not going to be hugging Zach Wilson or anything. But that kind of scenario has played in my head about kind of a walk-off key win for Joe Flacco.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully today will provide some more clarity. Teddy Bridgewater for the Dolphins is trying to get ready and play in that game with a broken finger. I don't know how that's going to work, but they're still trying. And with the Jets, Mike White has not been ruled out, and so there was just drama on top of drama, uncertainty on top of uncertainty as we head into the finish line, which is just, peak NFL.
All right. How about that other team in Pittsburgh Steelers? Let's
we should talk about them, I guess.
We should probably talk about them guys.
All right, let's talk about the injury report here that was released on Thursday. The Pittsburgh Steelers' final injury report will come out on Friday. Not practicing for the Steelers yesterday included just a couple of names here. Arthur Millette with an illness. Micah Fitzpatrick still with that ankle. Miles Jack with the groin. Cam Hayward was rested. And Larry Ogunjobi with a toe. With Ogunjobi, that's been standard procedure there. Millette, you would assume, is going to be okay. Fitzpatrick's just getting the rest. That's really not a surprise or cause for concern. I guess Miles Jack is the name to really watch here. But again, some of that's probably management that's become pretty typical for him the back half of the season.
Yeah, I would think at this point, and at least Norwood's moving in the right direction with his hamstring, but I think it was only limited with him, right? So I think it comes down to kind of the way we talked the other day. The two biggest names to watch this week would be Trey Norwood and Miles Jack. So we'll see what the Friday injury report says. I'm guessing. I'm going to guess it's going to end up with, I'll guess that Norwood will be out.
Okay.
And I'll guess Jack questionable, and I'll guess Minka questionable, and then maybe Minka upgraded on Saturday kind of thing. But those three names stick out the most when you look at this injury report here.
Yeah, I'm basically with you. Norwood, if I had to guess, is not going to go. Fitzpatrick, I'm pretty sure will play in this game. Jack, I think will play in this game. Will he make it to the end of the game? Who the heck knows at this point? I think you're right. Fitzpatrick probably gets the old, we've been upgraded, or he's upgraded on the injury report, no longer has a game status. I hate those things on Saturday.
I know.
Just make it on Friday.
Right.
I'm just trying to sit there on a Saturday, just chill, and then I get this news coming along, and I got to write this up. One other name we should note here: James Pierce been full all week with that concussion,
good
and
point.
so that was a good sign on Wednesday. I don't know for sure if he's exited protocol yet, but we assume he probably will get clearance. Should note, by the way, that also William Jackson III has been designated to return to practice, and so he's back for the finale, I guess. And Kelly Witherspoon's been back for a couple weeks practicing, so we'll see if any moves get made there. But with Pierre seemingly being healthy and playing in this game, Witherspoon and Jackson may remain on injured reserve.
Yeah, Milka who? Yeah, people forget that they actually traded for him, and
it's like that old movie, like you take the long drag of the cigarette. There's a name I haven't heard in a long time. That's William Jackson right
now. No way he gets activated.
No. Dude hasn't played since week 5. Like if anyone's going to if anyone gets activated, it's going to be Akella.
Yeah, I would be mighty surprised if he gets activated over the weekend there. It's more of a, and then I guess the question would be, well, why do this with him? Well, the whole thing is you never know. You might need him come, somehow get in the playoffs and, make a run with this thing. At least you have him working and trying to get his way back.
Yeah, this is hey, we paid you $2.7 million. Go out there and practice for a couple days. Make us feel like we're doing something here, even though it's very unlikely he's going to get activated. And if this team does not make the playoffs, and obviously I can't see him coming back really under any circumstances, certainly not his current contract projection, but even under a pay cut or some sort of giant rework, just cut your losses and move on.
And, at this point, it would have to be kind of a minimum salary guy, I think,
That's a steep fall from the $12 million he's projected to get.
Right. And all that would have to get done before the March roster bonus what was due. So, kind of a Justin Gilbert kind of thing, right? Just cut your losses and move on.
Yeah. So for Cleveland, I know we'll talk about it some with Scott here, but I think the names to watch there are Jack Conklin, the right tackle, and Denzel Ward, their top corner.
Yeah, it sounds like it when it comes to there, and be interested to see if the Jadeveon Clowney groin tightens up. Coach, I don't know. My groin's got a little bit tight today. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to go today. I wouldn't be shocked. Let's just put it to you that way.
Or it could be Kevin Stefanski saying, "Hey, Jadeveon, you look a bit injured. I think you should sit this one out."
Yeah.
Because of the comments that he made to Mary Kay yesterday, basically, expressing a lot of unhappiness with the organization, saying they're not using me well. Myles Garrett gets too much favoritism. Sure, that's not going to sit well with Kevin Stefanski. So at this point, I'd almost be surprised if Clowney did play in a finale that really means nothing to the Browns.
Yeah, look, and we talked a little bit about this with Scott as well too. Friday and rest. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with him based on those comments that he made.
Yeah, he might get the DNP coach's choice on Friday. Now the Browns can play spoilers, so they have that to mean to them. But obviously they've been eliminated from the playoffs, and Clowney's going to not going to be back next year. So we will see. Let's flip over now to the coordinator corner as Matt Canada and Teryl Austin. Did Matt Canada speak with reporters for the last time? That's one question to ponder. But Matt Canada, in Matt Canada fashion, talking about the Steelers offense, says we've got to score touchdowns. So there is the analysis.
Wait,
hope you guys are sitting down for that.
What did he say?
We've got to score touchdowns. If you were not aware, Pittsburgh's got to put up more points.
Yeah, we got to score more points. How many times have we heard that this year? And if there's we talked the other day that the best way to describe what this team's been doing offensively is they've mastered a below average offense. And that and here's the thing that points out the most, man, when you go through this thing, the defense, man, since the bye week, only two other teams in the NFL have had more points scored against them in the final 8 games. All right. So, I mean, that's how good this defense is. Now, within that, you look back and say, the Ravens game, the first Ravens game, they still didn't do enough in that game. But for the most part, I mean, there's only been one game in the second half of this season where they've given up more than I think 17 points in the game, and that was against the Bengals, right? So
right.
The offense is really the reason this team has been able to go on a 6-2 run in the second, since the bye week, is because of their defense. There's no two ways about it. Now within that, those drives late, I mean, you got to give Kenny Pickett and the offense some credit here for pulling out these games late, but they are in that situation that they're in because the offense is not scoring enough points in the early portions of the game, and the defense is doing all they can to keep them in it. Mm-hmm. But Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this offense still needs to score points, especially when they get down there in the red zone. And they did have the four explosive plays against the Ravens. That was good to see that. But we need to see them be able to produce the more explosive plays. They've been doing a good job of putting these longer drives together, but how sustainable is that on a week-to-week basis of having the 10 or 12 play drives, especially when they don't end in touchdowns? It'd be one thing if you're having these things and, oh man, look at this. They're putting 10, 12 play drives together and they're putting it in the end zone on top of it. What a backbreaker that is for the opposing team. But they're not doing that. And to make matters worse, they're missing a couple of field goals in this on top of it. So, yeah, we got to score more points, Matt. That's a long way of me saying we got to score more points, Matt.
Just a brief interruption here. I'm reading this from Ian Rappaport right now. DeMar Hamlin is reportedly addressing the team via FaceTime. He's talking to the entire Bills team right now, which is fantastic news there. So just wanted to pass that word along. But yeah, to go back to Matt Canada, I think, obviously the key to Pittsburgh's success to be 6-2 since the bye has been multifold. Have an identity offensively, run the ball more effectively, more efficiently, take care of the football. That's probably number one. Convert on third down to sustain those drives, even if they're not putting the ball in the end zone at the clip this team needs to. And then defensively, just keep the score down, play better run defense, take the football away. Certainly been led by, you've been won games because your defense has been keeping that score down. But offensively, the positive signs are this team has found an identity, found a rhythm, a game plan, a way to blueprint to win or at least be able to compete. And certainly they've taken care of the football, and that's been probably their biggest turnaround since the first half of the season.
Yeah, and I kind of hit quickly on that yesterday during my terrible take is at least they have some sort of an identity now on offense, and that's we're going to try to run the football on you. We're going to try to stay in third. We're going to get in third and manageable situations. Not only get in those third and manageable situations, we're going to convert those as well too. That's an identity, right? That kind of stuff there. Our identity is if we do keep it close, we have confidence that our quarterback can drive down the field for that final score, at least in these last couple of games there. So has it been perfect? Absolutely not. And once again, it's like a rich cracker that we're eating right now, but there's a lot better crackers out there on the market right now, and those crackers would look like putting more points on the on the scoreboard at this point. So
we got to get a sponsorship with Ritz with as many shout outs as we get.
Ritz is a damn good cracker though, by the way. But
are we sponsored now? Did we just get a sponsorship? I feel like you just secured one in 8 seconds.
Who is that now? That's Nabisco, isn't it?
I think so. I don't know.
I had a buddy back years ago that when I was in the coffee business and all like that, he worked for Nabisco and was started off on a route, went on up to kind of regional manager type things, and he was never, obviously that comes with perks of always having Nabisco products. So those got passed across the street quite a few times.
Wow, big perk of unlimited Ritz crackers. I like it.
Well, they also do the Keebler L, all those cookies and all like that. So it just wasn't the Ritz crackers kind of things there.
All right, I found my next job, I guess. But yeah, I just to harp on the point a bit more.
If you have to get into selling crackers for a living, we've done something terribly wrong.
That's also a fair point. Yeah, please, I don't want to do that. Door-to-door cracker salesman may not be my calling. But yeah, to go back to the turnovers, this team since the bye has turned the ball over 4 times the whole 8 games. That was 3 of them came against Baltimore, and they lost that game. So there's your blueprint. A very simple, very simplistic. Don't have to overthink it. Take care of the football. Play good defense. This team wins games when those things occur.
Right. Absolutely. Look, how we laid the blueprint out at the beginning of the season. I hate to keep going back to that, but if this team was going to win games in 2022, it was going to be play good defense. It was going to be run the football and, maybe pull out a win or 2 late.
Matt Canada also, I think this team finally admitting that, Najee Harris really wasn't that healthy before the bye, and that's kind of the reason why he, struggled so much. Not the only reason this offensive line has been better and this team has formed that identity and things like that, but Matt Canada saying, quote, Naj has gotten healthy, and the way he's running the football now is a drastic difference from the way it was early on. That's starting with a line. It's not just Naj, but I think you see that. I think Canada later said about Harris, quote, he's hitting the hole. He's seeing the hole. I do think there was a little bit of his health. He would say that to us, and he's a tough guy that was playing. So I know so much the first 8 weeks of the year, this team said, oh, Harris is fine. He's good. Stop asking about that. We all knew he was not 100%, and now you see him at 100%, and the difference, as Canada said, is night and day.
Right. Why didn't you show up on the injury report?
Well, they're not going to like you. They're not going to give you access to these injury reports, Dave. You're going to get these guys in trouble.
Yeah, like we're in good standings with the Steelers media side anyway.
Yeah, I guess it was one of those things where he wasn't missing time, I suppose. So if he doesn't miss time, then I guess in maybe a sense you can argue that. But we knew that he was impacted, and he was never maybe fully past that foot injury. And he certainly looks a whole lot better since the bye.
Look, they have it going on right now as far as the running back rotation goes, and you're not going to wear him down. That, and he needs what, 46, 48, 44 yards, something like that. To hit 1,000-yard season, and obviously 1,000-yard season ain't what it used to be years ago with all these games and all like that. But the way this thing was trending for him first half of the season, for him to get to 1,000 yards rushing at this point would be a pretty big accomplishment, I think. I mean, look, I think if you go back even the last since the bye week, his yards after contact, he's up there among the league leaders in yards after contact at the running back position since the bye week. So that that's something that's obviously a positive to look at in the final. They're going to have to run the football in this game, against the Browns to have to be able to win it as well too. So I think we're going to see a heavy dose of Najee and Jaylen Warren in this game.
100%. Even a stronger commitment, like Carolina type commitment to the run game, I think is what you're going to see. The Browns front seven is not played well. They have injuries, especially to their off-ball linebackers. And so I think you're going to see a lot of 22 and 30 in this game.
Okay.
Anything else from Matt Canada? I think those were kind of the big things that he addressed. Nobody did ask him, you coming back next year? How do you feel about that? But I understand that's a difficult question to ask.
Right.
All right, let's flip over to Teryl Austin. And Dave, you told me to bring a checkered flag today,
right.
So I guess I have a metaphorical one. And again, so some fans are upset here, and I understand why. But Teryl Austin saying that, listen, Devin Bush probably going to play more against the Browns. Mark Robinson probably going to play less. And those are things that we discussed and basically outlined on Wednesday.
And we bring checkered flags because they go to the winners, right? And you really, really won this one, which is not surprising. Now, lay out once again why things were where they were in Baltimore and why they're likely to be different on Sunday against the Browns.
Yeah, essentially what happened was against Baltimore, Pittsburgh used their 4-4 defensive specialty package to combat the Ravens' one receiver set. So whenever the Ravens would go super heavy with, two fullbacks or two running backs and two tight ends, 22 personnel, 13 personnel, all their big people, Pittsburgh would match that by bringing in DeMarvin Leal, by bringing in Mark Robinson. And the Browns aren't typically quite that heavy. They're, of course, a run-minded team, and they can bring in different people, but they're generally a two-receiver set kind of team. And so you're not going to run your 4-4 defense because that 4-4 only put one cornerback on the field. So you're facing two receivers. 98% of the time, you're going to have two cornerbacks out there. So that's going to mean more base, more nickel, those types of things. And so Devin Bush is going to play because Robinson was really only being used in that specialty ultra-heavy personnel package.
But we'll still see a little bit of Robinson in this game, you would think, right?
Probably. Again, it depends on what the Browns do. Often, offensive personnel dictates what your defense does. If the Browns hypothetically played this game in 11 personnel, you probably wouldn't see a snap in Mark Robinson. Now, I expect them to have multiple tight end sets, and they bring in some big people, 6 offensive linemen. And I think Robinson has earned maybe a look to play in base, but I would not expect him to play the 26 snaps he did against Baltimore. I think he may get a handful of snaps, and Devin Bush should have a larger role in this game.
And look, this is, Austin basically has said everything that we kind of expected him to say, and even when it comes to the evaluation of Mark Robinson wants to make all the tackles, right? And he wants to hit people. There's nothing absolutely wrong with that, but within that, they're still dealing, and Austin in so many words, so you're still dealing with a guy that's got some development to do here, learning the scheme, learning position, and all like that. And he said what happened in Baltimore was pretty specific with what they wanted him to do. In the same breath, none of this is I'm not taking any of what could potentially happen on Sunday against the Browns as a negative when it comes to Mark Robinson. If anything, everybody should be feeling very, very good about what's happened to Mark Robinson these last several weeks here. But within that, let's not lose sight of the fact that schematically, position-wise, his experience and all like that, he's still a young, developing player that the more you put him out there, he's probably more prone to make mistakes that could get you beat for some big gainers here.
Yeah, and sorry, we're getting some news here for Steelers relevant playoff situation. Joe Flacco will start this weekend against the Dolphins. Mike White is out, and that's according to Connor Hughes, a beat writer who covers the Jets. So Zach Wilson will be the backup. Joe Flacco will start against the Dolphins. No Mike White, and we'll see who Miami starts to counter that.
Wow. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think that really helps Steelers' chances.
Yeah, better than Zach Wilson for sure.
Yeah, interesting.
So there you go there. Joe Flacco, as you said, that one last potential ride, as we're both, I think, tweeting about the news right now. Steelers, I'm literally tweeting Steelers playoff hopes now reside in Joe Flacco's hands.
It's a small world, but I wouldn't want to paint it.
I don't know what that means, but okay. It's an old-timey saying. But yeah, it is funny. The former Raven, who's had so many battles against Pittsburgh, and now Steelers fans will be rooting for Joe Flacco.
And that's what I mean. It's kind of funny how things kind of circle all the way back here, right?
Yeah, it is pretty crazy there. So we shall see who the Dolphins start. Should be either Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater anyway. But yeah, to get back to Mark Robinson, again, excited about where he's been, excited about his development for next year, but just understanding that his role so far has been pretty specialized and trying to be tailored to his strengths and what he does best and what Devin Bush struggles with more. And again, could you see Robinson some in this game? Sure. But you'll see a lot more Devin Bush and a lot less Mark Robinson. And that's kind of the main takeaway to have.
Well, good on you for pointing all that out with a personnel group. So I think our own Owen Straley did a nice kind of film room to even kind of further examine that, right?
Yeah, he did a good breakdown on some of the different wrinkles schematically Pittsburgh had, primarily meeting their 4-4 defense. So from Teryl Austin, he talked about praising Sutton, praising Levi Wallace, or being just consistent and guys who show up and don't make mistakes and those types of things. Cam Sutton has had a really good year. Just have to say that out loud. There was a PFF metric, and the grades I don't care about much. The stats I care about a bit more, and the metrics showed that Sutton has been really strong and kind of in quote-unquote lockdown status with some of the top corners in football. So that's been good for him professionally and I assume financially. Whenever he gets paid by whoever, Pittsburgh or otherwise, he'll get paid a pretty penny.
Once again, what was the number that I was throwing out there? Around $13 million? And that
was your number, 13.
Right. Yeah. And you thought maybe that'd be a little bit high?
And I might be eating my words on that one. So I think we both have our checkered flags today because I think he might be right on Sutton. It's just, he's a lot of money.
You can't let him go. You can't.
No, I think he's
you got to re-sign him, right?
He's top priority for sure. I just go back to the thought exercise of you're going to pay a guy $13 million, and do you believe he's the number one cornerback on your team that can defend Jamar Chase twice a year for the next 5 years?
Yeah, good point. But they can't let to me at this point because of because if you don't re-sign him, who you got to go out and get somebody.
Yeah, no, and
you might have to go out and get somebody anyway.
Right?
On top of it.
Again, I'm in camp. Re-sign Cam Sutton. I think he's good just as a leader. His versatility. He does everything for this team. He can do everything for this team. It's not a guy that I want to let go. Pittsburgh can't afford it. Money's not going to be an issue where they can't afford it, or it's going to cap strap them so much that it's not practical to do. So there's really no good reason to let Cam Sutton go unless he just wants. But my thought with, if you're Cam Sutton, you sit there and say, cornerbacks on the market get paid. Let me test that market and, let me just see what other teams can offer.
I make it where they have to make it worth my while not to at least see what's out there. And look, he'll get it, with the whole tampering period. They know what his worth's going to be several weeks before the start of the new league year in March.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're Sutton, you're kind of waiting and getting closer to that tampering period to kind of start at least getting a feel for what might I get if I were to test the market, or can I leverage that to drive my price up in Pittsburgh? So I don't know if a deal is going to get done quickly because Sutton may want to wait and just kind of see what that market feels like.
True or false? They will get a deal done with Cam Sutton, a new deal done with Cam Sutton before the start of the new league, before free agency officially gets underway.
True.
I'm with you. They'll get it done. They'll find a way to get it done. Let's tag on to that real quick and put something in the books here. Akella Witherspoon. Do you carry him at least through final cut down decision, or is he a guy that before the start of the new league year you just let go? That's a tough one, isn't it? Because it really he's not killing you. But
I'd probably carry him just because they're really, I mean, you can free up that space, but you're going to free up space in other ways probably. And you have in there for insurance protection. There really isn't a big driving reason to cut the guy, in March.
Okay. I'm going to think that they just go ahead and let him get out of there.
They could. It wouldn't shock me. And there's certainly good reasons for it. But I'll guess. I'm clearing
that money out to give some of it to Sutton there. I've since day one, I've kind of thought that Witherspoon's been kind of overrated there, but he's not killing them. So it is plausible that they do carry him past the start of start of new league year, and he ends up getting cut by week one. There is that possibility.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that down the line. Anything else from Austin or Matt Canada? I think that those were the big things.
We got most of it there.
Yeah. All right, Dave, let's take a pause here and come back with our friend Scott Petrak, who writes for the Chronicle Telegram, Medina Gazette, and you can catch him over at brownzone.com. We'll get his perspective. You should follow him on Twitter, by the way. Didn't mention that. Follow Scott on Twitter, Scott Petrak. That's Petrak. We'll take a pause and come back with Scott.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. It is week 18 of the NFL regular season. It is Steelers hosting the Cleveland Browns at Acrisure Stadium on Sunday. That means we have back with us once again, he's become quite the regular on the show, covering the Cleveland Browns for the Chronicle, Telegram, and the Medina Gazette. He writes, you can find all of his work at brownzone.com. We know most of you have been over there. If not already, make sure you do get over there and get caught up on everything Browns this week. We are, of course, talking about Scott Petrak. Scott, you can follow him on Twitter at Scott Petrak. That's SCOTTPETRAK. He's an avid golfer as well, too. I bet he's not doing that right now. But with that, Scott, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Thanks. How you guys doing?
Doing good. Big game obviously coming up for one side here at least. Well, really both sides, because it's the Browns Super Bowl, it seems, right now here. And they could obviously, I think if they win this game, they would be tied record-wise with the Steelers, but I think because of the sweep of the series that way, they would actually technically finish ahead of the Browns. So kind of what's the thought this week, Scott, going into this week? Are they indeed treating this like their Super Bowl, and what's kind of the mood around Berea there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. I don't think it's that strong, treating it like a Super Bowl. I do think the Browns think the situation the Steelers are in provides meaning to this game, right? Which otherwise would be quote unquote meaningless for the Browns, right, given that they're out of the playoffs. And the Browns do have stuff to play for, and a lot of it's related to the Steelers. Knock them out of the playoffs, and you guys a losing season for the first time under Mike Tomlin. The Browns can finish 8-9, which would match the record from a year ago. And I don't know how much that means to them, but go 4-2 with Deshaun Watson as a starting quarterback since he came back from suspension. And then there's a bunch of individual statistical items. So I do think the fact that they can knock the Steelers out of the playoffs certainly adds some motivation for the Browns. But I still think the Steelers have more than the Browns do.
When you look back at the season here, and it's obviously it will be quite a while before we talk to you again, probably around the draft, hopefully, and all like that. But what's the season obviously with Deshaun Watson missing half of it there. What's been kind of your 30,000-foot view from where you were in week 1? Or back when we talked to you about week 3 ahead of this, ahead of Steelers Browns, where are you now? Now that the season's winding down on the Browns.
Yeah, it's the season. You know how it is when you get in the middle of the season. You're here every day. You kind of get caught up in the minutia a little bit. I do think when you take a step back, they're going to have the same record or one game away than they did a year ago. They had a lot of, tumult to deal with the Watson suspension. They brought it upon themselves, obviously, but that was a big part of the season. But their backup quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, played pretty well for the first 11 games, and the Browns could only go 4-7. And that's the story of this season: is the defense wasn't good enough early, the special teams weren't good enough early, and the offense was better than expected, and Brissett was better than expected. And they still couldn't put those wins together. And that's what's really frustrating and angering this fan base is that there were missed chances. And all you have to do is look at week 2 against the Jets when they blew a 13-point lead in the last 2 minutes. And when we look at this playoff race, I thought you'd need 10 wins to get in the playoffs, and you're going to need 9, right? It looks like you're going to need 9 to get in. So there's plenty of games you can point to where the Browns led in the fourth quarter and didn't finish it off. And so I think that's it, and then the second half of that is, Deshaun Watson's here now. He's playing better. Will he be the same guy in 2023? And will he be worth everything the Browns give up to get him?
Before I turn it over to Alex for a handful here, what are your thoughts on Deshaun Watson after this handful of games?
Yeah, he hasn't played at that elite level, right, that they need him to play if you're going to keep up with the Burrows and the Mahomes and the Allens of the world, the Herberts. He hasn't played there, but there certainly are flashes that suggest he will return to that level, because I think he did play at that level before, almost 2 years away from football. So, my problems with the trade for him were always off the field things. On the field, it made sense to me because you think he's an elite quarterback. Draft picks are draft picks, but the franchise quarterback is hard to come by. So I understand why they did it from a football perspective. Now, he's still got to prove that he can be that guy again. And to me, he's shown athletically he can, right? He still throws the ball great. He still runs it when he needs to run it and runs it well. He's got dual threat that they're looking for. The only question in my mind is, can he put all the off the field stuff away, right? Can he, not only does it not crop up again, but can he handle it mentally? Because that's a lot. And, obviously he brought it on himself, but, can you have to get over that hurdle? I think that's a significant question. And it looks like he's going to get there, and it looks like he's playing better. And when he talks to us, you don't see, him like carrying around this huge baggage. But I still think that remains a question, because this team will not get anywhere close to where it wants to go if he doesn't play like a top, 5 or 7 quarterback.
Scott, looking towards the Browns offseason, offensively, what areas are they going to focus on the most? Do they have a number 3 receiver on this team, but behind Cooper, behind Donovan Peoples-Jones, is David Bell, Anthony Schwartz, are those guys? Or are they going to look to bring in another weapon for Deshaun Watson this offseason?
I certainly think that is priority number 1 on offense. They re-signed Jack Conklin. They gave him an extension. So he'll be here at right tackle. To me, that was a question mark. They got to figure out center. Ethan Posick, who's played really well this year, kind of forced into that starting center job. he was on a 1-year contract. I expect him to re-sign him. If not, they have Nick Harris, but he missed all year with the knee injury suffered in the preseason opener, and hasn't really played much. So I think Posick makes more sense there. But regardless, they have the other 4 guys coming back on the offensive line. So, yeah, I think it's that number 3 receiver spot. Donovan Peoples-Jones probably has established himself as a number 2 this year. I think he's had a strong season. It hasn't been perfect. A couple of drops lately in big moments. And drops might be too strong, but a couple of plays where he didn't bring it down in the end zone against the Bengals and against I'm blanking on this, and against the Saints in that cold Christmas Eve game. But overall he's played well. I think he's got career high numbers. So whether he's a 2/3 and you need to find another 2/3, I certainly think that that's where the Browns need to go, and I think it needs to be a speed guy. Now the disappointing thing is that's what they thought Anthony Schwartz was going to be when they drafted him in the 3rd round in 2021, and he just hasn't lived up to that. He's dealt with injuries this year. And I don't think they're going to cut him, but I don't think you can go into next season counting on him to be that guy. I think David Bell, he's sure-handed. He runs good routes, but he's limited. He's slow. So I do think you need that speed guy. So that would be my number 1 priority on offense. And maybe you upgrade a tight end, you have David Njoku who's your number 1 guy. And not that Harrison Bryant's been bad, but if you really want to surround Deshaun Watson, maybe you go get, try to find another number 2 tight end.
Wanted to ask you about a recent story. Jadeveon Clowney speaking yesterday and seems very unhappy with his position in Cleveland right now, saying he wants to go to a team who believes in him. There's always kind of been maybe this weird relationship there, some 1-year deals back and forth with Clowney. Just what is going on with him? And also just to a larger point, why can't this team find a good pass rusher to pair next to Myles Garrett? I mean, Garrett's one of the best in football. No one else has more than 3 sacks. Why can't they find a guy opposite to Garrett?
Yeah, there's Mary Kay Cabot at Cleveland.com. She talked to him one-on-one yesterday, and he said some really interesting stuff to her. Doesn't think he'll be back. Doesn't think the team believes in him. Thinks they cater to Myles Garrett. The team caters to Myles Garrett, try to get him favorable matchups, and ignores kind of the other guys in the D-line. It was really harsh comments from Jadeveon, so I'm kind of interested to see what how the coaches and even Myles Garrett react today when we talk to those guys. But yeah, that defense, the bookend for Myles Garrett is really interesting. And as I was just thinking about that, before, I've kind of thought that they need to go find like a long-term answer, right? Go get a number 2 that you can pair with him, and those guys are together for, 4 or 5 years. The Browns seem to have a different philosophy. I don't know if that will change this offseason, given what's happened with Jadeveon Clowney. But, they had Olivier Vernon for a couple of years, and he was good. Right. And then they had Jadeveon Clowney for a couple of years, and Clowney was really good last year. So I understand why they do it, and you don't want to have so many resources tied up in one position, and they're paying Garrett $25 million a year, right? So you think, okay, we'll just kind of patch it together year to year, and I get that, but I also like the idea of kind of having this young guy that learns, a young good guy that learns from Garrett, and they can be this pair together. You think of when the Giants won those couple of Super Bowls, they had that big time front 4, and they're not the only team. A lot of teams have that, have those 2 guys on the edges. So I'd like to see that. I know the Browns have some salary cap issues given their big contract, so I don't know that they'll do it. But, they drafted Alex Wright in the 3rd round this year. I don't think he's ready to be, he doesn't have a sack. I don't think he's ready to be the full-time starter opposite Garrett. So you do have to find someone that threatens the defense and or takes advantage when teams pay as much attention to Garrett as, offensive lines do.
Scott, speaking of Clowney, when that report dropped last night, I thought, is he going to show back up on the injury report on Friday? Is that groin all of a sudden going to get tight with him? I'm making a kind of a joke there, but I mean, is there any? It will be interesting to see how this coaching staff reacts to this, right? Is there any chance that they say, we don't care for that? I mean, could he be inactive on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, that's a question that is going to be asked to Kevin Stefanski today, certainly. So, yeah, I would not rule that out at all. Clowney, good here, is a player. The production was down this year, and he dealt with an ankle injury that kept him out parts of the season. but I do think he's played better than the 2 sacks that he's got. I really do. He's been around the ball, and actually, I was hoping to talk to him this week myself, and I was going to say that to him, that, it feels like he's played better than 2 sacks, because I do think he's been around the ball more, and they just haven't come to him. There's a play last week where Clowney was half a step behind Garrett and getting to Carson Wentz, right? So that doesn't show up as a sack, obviously, but he was right there. So yeah, I think, but he's a mercurial kind of guy, and you don't really know what he's thinking all the time, and he says what he's thinking, and that can get him in trouble. So I do think that's a question mark for Sunday, and then one of the rookies, Isaiah Thomas, didn't practice with a foot injury Thursday, so they could wind up being shorthanded there. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about, I would guess the 2 to watch on the injury report on Friday would be Thomas and, of course, Denzel Ward with the shoulder there. How do you think that's going to play out? Are those the 2 guys to watch on Friday?
Yeah, actually, I think it's Ward and Conklin. Conklin hasn't practiced this week with an ankle.
Wow.
And Ward hasn't practiced with the shoulder. Now, Ward's been working on the side, so who knows? I mean, it's so hard when last game of the season, both these guys are paid big money. Do you risk further injury in a game like we talked about? Doesn't mean much for the Browns. I'd kind of be surprised if either of those guys played, but the Browns have not made any kind of decision yet, and Kevin Stefanski wouldn't rule them out earlier in the week. I think Denzel Ward's really good, and I think he's playing a lot better in recent weeks than he did earlier in the season. But they have some depth at corner. They had Greg Newsome the second. They have Martin Emerson Jr., the rookie who's played well this year. A.J. Green, Greedy Williams, who's kind of become a non-factor. But they have some guys at corner. Right tackle, to me, is the issue. If Conklin doesn't play, then it's James Hudson III. And he played some this year. He started the first couple games when Conklin was out, still coming back from that patellar. But Hudson's a guy that gave up 4 sacks to T.J. Watt in week 17 last year. So, that could destroy the game for the Browns. Now, the Browns think he'll be better this year because he has some experience. He's gone up against Watt before. Obviously, again, have to figure out a way to help him and not let him wreck the game. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on.
And Hudson, their fullback occasionally, which is kind of fun to watch anytime you see a big lineman in the backfield there. My last question for you, Scott, to let Dave finish things out. I know you've probably been asked about this a million times, so I'll keep it very short. Where do you commit on Kevin Stefanski? Is this job truly safe no matter what happens here in this finale? Is there any chance of shifting roles or play calling next year? What's the outlook on Kevin Stefanski?
I think his job's safe. If they lose 50-0, could that change things? Sure. You never know with the Haslam's, but unless something really unforeseen happens, Stefanski's coming back. I think he keeps the play calling duties. A strength for him. I really do. I know some people around here quibble with specific calls, and he doesn't run enough. I think he's been good this year. I think they scored a bunch of points with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, and not every coach can do that with a backup quarterback. So he's not perfect, but I think he'll be back, and I think he'll still be calling plays. Now you could have changes at defense coordinator and maybe even special teams coordinator. I think after 2 disappointing seasons in a row, you probably shake things up to some degree. But I certainly don't expect it to be at the head coach spot.
Scott, is someone who, obviously been around the Browns for a while and of course, watched AFC North football to go along with it and part of that being the Steelers. What's your thoughts on the 2022 Steelers at this point? 8-8 right now, and obviously going to need a win on Sunday and a couple of games to go their way to get into the playoffs. But where are you on what you've seen happen to the Steelers this year?
Yeah, I'm just extremely impressed with the ability to bounce back from that 2-6 start, the ability to, I guess always be in the mix. I think that's really impressive. Not that I doubted it. I know a lot of people were writing off the Steelers before the season, especially around here, right? But I never expected that. I just think Mike Tomlin's too good. I believe in culture, and I think that culture is too good. So I've been really impressed by the turnaround. I think on the field, I went back and watched the last couple of games that, the Steelers played. obviously not explosive, right? Not scoring a ton of points, but doing what they need to do to win. The defense is always usually formidable. I have been impressed with Pickett's playmaking ability, getting outside the pocket and doing, making plays that way. Obviously, he'll get that touchdown last week to beat the Ravens. I'm not ready to say he belongs in the, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson discussion, but I have been impressed. And, when he takes care of the ball, obviously he puts him in a much better position to win. So, those are my biggest takeaways. I thought Najee, turned it around early in the year. I thought, oh my gosh, this guy might not turn out to be the guy I thought he was. And then I think he's played much better lately. Let me ask you something while I got you. What do you think about Pickett's arm strength? Because I'm looking forward to seeing him live on Sunday. And he's made some throws for sure. Is it big enough? That's kind of the question I have with him.
It's been a question right out of the chute. It's one of the things Alex and I have kind of hit on. That the three things we were kind of waiting to see late in the season were making plays in the red zone, putting the ball in the end zone that way, pushing the football down the field. We saw a little bit of that in the Ravens game, right, with a couple of those plays out of structure and all. Sure. But he's never going to be that 53-yard, air yard guy down the field. He's going to be more the 43 to 48, kind of guy. So that's probably one of the boxes that he still has to check is, can he push the football down the field, much more than like 40, 45 yards, right?
Yeah, and that's interesting because I do think that limits you. Not that you can't win like that.
Right.
And especially if you have that escapability that he certainly seems to show, and I didn't always know that he had that, I guess. But that would be my question about him. But I have been impressed, and especially the way he has played the last couple of weeks in the fourth quarter. Obviously, that's impressive.
All right, Scott, we got to wind you down. How do you see this going on Sunday? You got a final score for us, and do you think the Steelers will somehow manage to sneak into this thing?
Yeah, I got the Steelers winning. I thought it was a really tough pick for me because I think the Browns might be better, and I think the Browns are better quarterback. But the Steelers have more motivation. I think that's important. I don't know how this Clowney thing is going to affect the team, if at all. So I think that's something to, when you're thinking, okay, it's going to be a close game, that gives me one more reason to stick with the Steelers. So I'm going to go Steelers 23-21.
Okay. You think they'll get in? Think they'll get enough help?
I don't know. They need Miami to lose, right?
Yeah. They need Miami to lose.
Is that one of the games?
Yeah. And they need New England. They need Miami and New England to both either lose or tie.
Yeah, I think New England's going to lose, and I think Miami could lose. Obviously, it just, I saw a Twitter clip yesterday, and I'm thinking, okay, Miami Jets. I feel like maybe Miami figures out a way to win that game, so I'd be worried about that if I was the Steelers.
And tell the people what they're going to find over at Brown Zone, not only for this week but on into the off season.
Yeah, I got, I think up there now is a story about Joe Woods maybe getting fired, him talking about wanting to stay. There's a story up there about Joe Thomas being a Hall of Fame finalist. We'll have the Clowney reaction today. Things to watch for the game coming up. I had an interview with Grant Delpit yesterday, so I'll write that one of these days. And then the off season, it's, following any coaching changes that are made. And then, there's always something going on, right? The combine and all that stuff coming up. So Joe Thomas will probably get in the Hall of Fame, so that'll be on there.
Absolutely. All right. Scott, look, Alex and I appreciate you joining us twice this year, and we'll check in with you during the offseason here, probably closer to the draft, to see what's going on with the Browns. So as another season here winds down, Scott, thanks again for joining Alex and myself on the Terrible Podcast.
All right. Thanks for having me, fellas.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Scott Petrak, who, again, you should follow him on Twitter at Scott Petrak, and be sure to shout him out as you guys did with Jonas, and really appreciate those comments. But be sure to say the same for Scott. Follow him at Scott Petrak, and appreciate his time as always, Dave.
Boy, Scott's become kind of, now that John Eisenberg has moved on with his life's work. Scott's become one of the him and Paul Dana, of course, have become kind of those guys now, right? For us, those long-standing guys there. So we certainly do appreciate his time, and we had to rearrange. We do anything to kind of accommodate these guys to get on, whether it be moving up the start time by an hour, like we did today with the time that we normally get started here. So if we want to be able to talk to these guys, especially during the off season and twice next year and all, it's important that they know that they're being heard. And the way you do that is if you're on social media, reaching out and thanking them for their time for coming on twice a year, or visiting visiting brownzone.com and checking in that way. Or, if you follow any of them, I don't know, on Facebook or anything like that, but just, make a concerted effort to support them and somehow let them know that you are hearing them. That's the best payback that you can give those guys for their time that they spend it with us. And we thoroughly enjoy talking to them a couple, especially the AFC North beat writers a couple times a year. So do us, we know you do. There's certain Margie and there's several of you out there. We see it. And we try to retweet it when we see it out there. And we certainly do thank you for reaching out to these guys, after they've been on.
Absolutely does not go unnoticed by David and myself. All right, Dave, let's preview the Steelers-Browns game ourselves. Sunday, 1:00 Eastern time. Season on the line for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Browns eliminated trying to play spoiler. Of course, two new quarterbacks in this game. The matchup in Week 3 was Jacoby Brissett versus Mitch Trubisky. Now it's Deshaun Watson versus Kenny Pickett. And so Watson had a pretty quiet start to his Browns career, shaking off all that rust from 2 years of missed time. Basically coming off his best half of football in that win last weekend over Washington, throwing 3 second-half touchdowns. So, I thought Brissett played well for Cleveland, but Watson certainly, as Cleveland's hoping for, can be that top-tier type of quarterback.
Yeah, look, they're moving them a little bit out of the pocket, right? But I mean, it comes first and foremost there. It starts with shutting down their running game and Nick Chubb. I mean, this is obviously an offensive front similar. I mean, or an offensive game plan that's going to be very similar to what we previewed there way back in Week 3. There, they are going to want to try to run the football. If you remember back to the early game, I mean, David Njoku, they really found real quick, especially against some of those zone coverages, and really, a couple of man times, I think as well too, that was an area that they could exploit. They did a good job in certain situations. They probably didn't do it enough of getting the ball in the hands of Amari Cooper. Some of them over routes that they ran, I remember against him as well too, that they've been able to run for most of the season as well too. But this is going to be, when you kind of compare this to what the Steelers had to get ready for against the Ravens, the previous week there, this is a lot more balanced offense overall because of the quarterback situation, because of the wide receiver situation over there as well too. Look, and Baltimore has Andrews and Likely and all like that, but the Steelers knew that they had to go into that game if they stopped the run. Because of them having the backup quarterback in there, that was going to be the big component of that. Merely stopping the run on Sunday against the Browns, still might not be good enough because of because of some of those wide receivers that they have in Cooper. I haven't even mentioned the name Donovan Peoples-Jones. He has really emerged as being that guy that could be the number 2 over there. And as I did mention, you got to watch out for David Njoku. So even though this team is out of it there, and I think Deshaun Watson's been super sloppy at times, trying to find his footing in all this, I think you got to get in a situation where I want Deshaun Watson to have to beat me with his arm by throwing to guys like Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Should note here again, I'm all interruptions today, but that groin for Jadeveon Clowney has apparently gotten tight. He's been sent home from practice. He will not practice, and I assume he will not be playing in this game. So the Browns have heard Clowney's comments and said, "Get out of here."
Okay, well, I nailed that one, didn't I?
Yeah. So we're all full of checkered flags today. But yeah, that's Mike Garofalo. The tweet here: the Browns have sent Jadeveon Clowney home today. He won't practice. And then he said yesterday he was 95% sure he wouldn't be back in Cleveland next year. I'm 100% sure he will not be back in Cleveland for this game on Sunday.
Well, there's one easy inactive. Look, I mean, you do this long enough like we've done it, you know, some of these things stick out. And I mean, he's going to be inactive now, right?
100%. I mean, he's not going to even be in the stadium, I imagine, on Sunday. So that is the story there with Jadeveon Clowney, and that's kind of what Scott and we just talked about an hour ago. All right, back to the Browns.
It's got to be that groin.
It's that groin. It's just pesky groin injuries in week 18. Long season, apparently. Browns, but yeah, what you said, what you surmised is accurate. They can pass the ball now with Deshaun Watson. They're going to move the pocket. They can run quarterback sweeps. They had a quarterback sweep for a touchdown with Deshaun Watson. So the design run game, Brissett was really a quarterback sneak and makes run when he had to kind of guy. Watson is more than that. Although, again, I know they were better against the Commanders in the second half. This offense has not really hit their stride with Watson. If anything, they've kind of regressed in a lot of ways in the red zone, their overall points per game. So they're going to try to carry and carry over what they did in the second half against Washington into this game. But overall, this offense has kind of been clunky as they've adjusted to Watson, and of course Watson trying to shake off all the rust from time missed.
Feels like they've been trying to win some games, like the Steelers have been trying to win some games this year, right?
Yeah, I think their identity. I mean, they've always had a better identity in terms of their
they can run the ball.
Running the ball. Yeah, and now Kareem Hunt's had a down year, and it's really kind of been Chubb as their top guy. It's a little less. I mean, Hunt's playing on passing downs. He gets work, but he's really not been all that productive. Chubb, again, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think Nick Chubb's the best pure runner in football, even better than Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley or anybody you want to throw out there. And he's still having a really strong season. The O-line is not blocked as well, and so it's been a bit tougher for them just because they've lacked some of the core that they've had in the past, but their identity, as you said, is still very much, I think they've run more gap scheme lately, but it is a run first mentality. Right.
You got to shut that down first and foremost, but I firmly believe that you got to, Deshaun, I mean, those touchdown throws he didn't have to throw a lot in that last game, right? But when he did have to throw, I mean, and that's obviously a byproduct of them being able to run the football there. But I want to see Deshaun make plays in that offense to beat the Steelers.
Yeah. And I'm sure he'll have to. Now he was scrambling. He's able to break tackles, and there's a different element to that. So quarterback contain, which I think for Pittsburgh's been still not great, even in that Ravens game against Tyler Huntley. I thought he's able to break contain a couple times, and so that's got to be better, especially against the mobile quarterback in Deshaun Watson. But Amari Cooper has had a really strong year. They're moving him around quite a bit, trying to get him free. And obviously Cooper had a big game against Pittsburgh in that first matchup for 7 catches, 100+ yards, and a touchdown. So that's their number one guy to try to take away is Amari Cooper.
Right. He's had a nice season overall, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they stole him from Dallas. A fifth-round pick for that production's been fantastic. They do a good job. They can flick. They run dagger routes and smash seams to try to really put the safety in conflict. So Minkah Fitzpatrick, Edmonds in this game, KZ if he's playing in dime. Those guys have to be really disciplined and read the field well to be able to make sure they don't bite on something.
Right, and also you're probably going to see a lot of zone in here because you don't want to turn your back too often to Deshaun, right?
Yeah. I think you're going to probably play more zone to not man up because whenever he runs and scrambles, that's always a challenge for those mobile quarterbacks.
All right, now it'll be interesting to see what happens on that other tackle spot too, right? And even so, Conklin's not going to be probably 100% in this game. You need your edge guys. Mike Tomlin hit on this the other day, and maybe we didn't pay enough attention to it or talk about it enough. In that first game, the Browns really, really did a great job of doing what the Steelers have been doing, staying in the third and manageable type situations there. And that goes back to stopping a run on the early downs there. You can't let this Browns team get in a situation multiple times on third and fourth situations or less where they have you guessing of what they're going to do on that down, because for them, they think nothing of attempting to run the football on 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 situations there. So you've got to get them in the must passing situations, and ideally 3rd and 5 or longer, where Deshaun Watson has to hold that football a little bit longer, and you let your edge guys get to work on there. But I would think for the most part, if they can stay ahead of the chains, meaning running well on early downs, then you're going to get into a lot of situations where if they do get in the 3rd down and short situations, that Deshaun Watson will be getting the football out of his hands quickly. And when they do have to hold on to the football, you're going to see some max protection type situations.
Yeah, I think so. One last note is, Alex Highsmith has always owned their left tackle, Jedrick Wills, on that inside spin especially. Now, I think in recent weeks, I've seen tackles be able to handle Highsmith's spin a bit better. Colton Miller of the Raiders, Stanley against Baltimore. I thought tackles understand that's coming, and they're probably preparing for it a bit more. But I really want to see that Highsmith-Wills matchup, even though what Watt will do against Conklin or Hudson, whoever's over there at right tackle, is going to be the focus, because Highsmith has historically had a lot of success against Jedrick Wills.
And we talked, when Watt's healthy this year, that and Hayward's on the field, that there was going to be games where Highsmith's going to have his opportunities to win one-on-one against some of these tackles. This should be one of these games where Highsmith should have an opportunity to display that he's that guy.
Yeah, I think it'll be a big game for him, big game for this pass rush. Again, both the actual getting after the quarterback, finishing the play on a mobile quarterback, and then containing Watson as well can be just as important as making a sack or a pressure or something like that.
Right.
All right, Dave, the Browns defense here, I think you can kind of sum it up in 2 different sections. Their front seven's been pretty lackluster. They have a bottom 3rd ranked run defense, and they've had a bunch of injuries up front. And now it appears to be Jadeveon Clowney will not even play in this game. That secondary, though, I think has been strong, underrated. And so that all lends itself to Pittsburgh's identity and philosophy of run the heck out of the football in this game.
Yeah, their secondary has been okay. That I write those recaps up in the AFC North every week, and it's been kind of a constant at time. Remember last year when Minka had to make all those tackles? Boy, John Johnson's having to show up a lot.
And Delpit too.
And Delpit to make a lot of tackles. And that within itself, I mean, kudos to those guys for being those guys, but it lets you know, I think it gives you a kind of an idea of what has been happening. They have been beat up the middle at the linebacker position, right? I mean, you have all those guys on IR. Wusu Koromoa is one of them that they're missing there. Who else is? Didn't they lose?
Taki.
Oh yeah, Taki.
The best name in football. Yeah, unfortunately, towards ACL.
Right. So, I mean, they have been hurting up the middle overall in there. And quite honestly, really Jordan Elliott and Taven Bryan, I think, have been playing okay. But I don't know how many times I've said it the last couple of weeks. They're high diddle, send Najee up the middle. That should be the goal here. And this offensive line's been getting that push early in games where you physically see them be able to get off the ball, get to the next, in some of those inside zone schemes of being able to get the bubble correct and hit the guy at the next level. They've been able to do that. And this is a game where you come out, and I think you try to impose just like they're going to try to do against the Steelers, you come out trying to run the football and try to run it up the middle on them, and them not having now Jadeveon Clowney, who's never, in my opinion, been super great against the run, but they might be vulnerable on the edge now as well, too, when it comes to defending the run.
The analogy that I made in my report was this has a very Bengals before they got good kind of feel. Remember when Jesse Bates and Von Dell would make all the tackles every single year for a couple of years? It's not really the case anymore, but that's where Cleveland sits today. And, just over the season, following some of the Browns guys, some of the NFL guys that do all 22 of the entire league, some of the worst run defense clips I've seen this year have been against the Cleveland Browns run defense. And they've just been allowing some truck-sized holes. I mean, you talk about the injuries at inside backer. I had to look up who's even playing for them right now. It's Tony Fields, it's Jermaine Carter, and Reggie Ragland's somehow still in the NFL. those guys don't even have their photos on the team site yet. That's how new they are to the team. And Ragland and Carter, who I like coming out of Maryland, by the way, that's probably worth nothing. But the interior defense line's been a problem for them all year. And Andrew Berry's kind of analytics mind, he's devalued the interior defensive line position. They're feeling the effects of that. So this plays perfectly into what Pittsburgh wants to do because they face some really tough run defenses lately. They will not be facing a tough run defense this weekend. You don't take anything for granted. It's left to go out there and execute, but they should run the ball at a pretty high clip in this game.
And what's been the defensive model kind of around the league all season? Start off with too high, and if teams can run the ball, then of course force the safety down. But in general, I think teams want defenses around the league because of the ability with these receivers. You want to play too high first and foremost. So try to get if the Browns come out in that early, you got to run the football, force one of those safeties, like Johnson down to help there, and then maybe you'll start getting some of those matchups on the outside occasionally. Where you can push the football down the field.
I will say, I think you're right. A lot of teams are trying to play too high. The Browns have stacked the box a lot because they know how bad their run defense is. I think that's one reason why you're seeing Delpert and John Johnson make all these tackles because they're playing 8-man boxes quite a bit and trusting they got enough talent in the secondary and outside corner with Ward and Emerson and Newsome to win those matchups. So you're going to see 8 in the box. You're going to see this D-line slant or aggressive. They try to one gap and penetrate and make plays that way. Linebackers scrape over the top. They wrong arm pulling guards. So they want to be aggressive up front to try to create some splash. But if you can get past that into the second level, you're going to have some big runs for this ground game.
Let's look at some of their defensive tendencies here from, let's say, week 15, because isn't that about where they had to make some more changes at linebacker and all around in there?
About that, that's fine.
Stack box, 31% of the time. And I think that's that usage rank is 4th in the league. Light box, 42% of the time, 25th in the league. 7-man box usage, 27%, 26 rank in the league when it comes to that. So that kind of plays along with this recency with them, with kind of the injuries that they have. Even so, they too high shell, 63% of the time is ranked 6th in the league as far as usage goes. So they're either in too high shell or they stack in the box.
That's kind of weird that they're leading in both of those. You typically would think you're kind of one or the other. So I guess it's maybe more because in passing situations, third and long, they're going to play a lot of cover too. So that's where you get your too high looks. Maybe that's influencing that. But at least in the tape that I watched, early downs, they're putting which makes sense. If your front seven sucks, you're going to put a safety down to try to stop the run.
Here it is. I filtered this down to you to 3rd and 4th down for the same weeks 15 to 18. Too high, 68%. Ranked 4th in the league. So most of their too high stuff seems to be coming in 3rd down situations.
Okay. That makes me feel good when I do because I don't look at these numbers beforehand. So when I do my scouting report, it's based mostly off the tape. And so I feel good when those things kind of align what I'm seeing, what the tendencies I'm seeing versus the actual stats.
All right. So early down, they'll stack the box. If you can, run against it, then you're going to keep them in those situations. They're ideally going to thinking that they're going to stop you and get you in a 3rd and long situation where they can play too high.
Yeah, that has not worked for them too well this year, but that's going to be their mission. And Pittsburgh's mission, of course, is to combat that. But again, the secondary is strong. Now, Ward may not play, but Martin Emerson's had a really strong rookie season. And I know that Sauce Gardner gets all the attention for the great rookie cornerback play, but Emerson has been, not quite up there with him, but not far away. And they got Newsome, and I think Delpert's got 3 picks this last 2 weeks. And, it's a pretty good secondary. So again, this all feeds into the Steelers. I think it'll be a very Carolina game plan of just the goal is to literally run the ball 43 times.
4-man rush last several weeks for them, 85%, second most in the league. And their blitz rate's just 12% because they haven't been in, at least in the last couple of games, they haven't had a lot of situations, I don't think, where they could blitz,
Right. And they're a 4 down front and they don't, traditionally those teams don't blitz a ton.
Right. All right.
And then, their DC probably will get fired after this year. Joe Woods, a Western PA, lived in my old hometown. So I'm quietly rooting for Joe Woods to survive, but I think he'll probably be fired after this year.
Okay.
I think he actually literally said after his last presser, he said, hopefully I talk to you guys next year, which is never a good sign for a coordinator to tell the media. But anyway, any final thoughts with this Browns defense? Special teams in OK York, their kicker's been up and down. So that's a name to watch.
Look, you got to just, you'd expect this to be another low-scoring game, I think. You can't let here's the thing. The difference in this ball game is kind of what Mike Tomlin hit on the other day. If you can keep the Browns out of those third and manageable situations, that's going to be the difference in the game.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. So let's move on here, Dave. We'll make our predictions for this game in a moment. But before we do that, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
Yeah, Alex, it's a new year, new you. So give yourself a fresh start with MyBookie. Whether you bet to earn or to make the games more exciting, MyBookie gives you the most for your money with their redesigned deposit bonus. Just use promo code TERRIBLE on a deposit of $50 or more to receive a cash bonus instantly to your MyBookie account. Once again, on a deposit of $50 or more to receive a cash bonus instantly to your MyBookie account using promo code TERRIBLE. Using this bonus is simple. Bet your deposit amount just once and you're ready to cash out. It's no strings attached with MyBookie. Bet on the NFL, the UFC, or play for a share of big cash prizes in the weekly online blackjack tournaments they have. With so many brands to choose from, you need a platform that makes it simple to bet and win like MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Additional promo details, this new deposit bonus is a 10% cash bonus on any first-time deposits up to $2,000. The minimum deposit amount is $50, and the maximum bonus amount is $200. This bonus only has a one-time playthrough amount, which means that the bonus doesn't lock you in, which is a major point for online gamblers. Focus on the cash in, cash out aspect of the bonus and not the percentage amount. So once again, use promo code TERRIBLE on a deposit of $50 or more to receive a cash bonus instantly to your MyBookie account. So there we go, Alex, and we appreciate MyBookie long season once again with them being sponsors of the Terrible Podcast.
Absolutely. Thank them very much for their support throughout the year. All right, Dave, no Thursday night football, of course, last night, but let's make our picks for the full slate of games in Week 18.
Man, I'm going to have to try to make up 6 or 7 games on you in a hurry here.
You're catching up. These last couple weeks,
one at a time. I'm getting one at a time on you there.
You got to go against me a lot then, I guess. This is kind of your mission this week.
Alex, I'm not scoring enough points.
You got to score more touchdowns, Dave.
Kansas City Chiefs at the Raiders out here in Las Vegas. Chiefs favored by 9 on the road against the Raiders.
Jarrett Stidham didn't look too bad in his first start with the Raiders. Still, I know the Chiefs don't always cover, but in a game like this where they can clinch that 1 seed, give me the Chiefs.
I got to take some opposite sides of you here. Yeah, give me the Raiders +9 and hopefully keep this close. A real good game to watch, maybe Saturday night to decide which one of these teams goes to the playoffs and wins the AFC South. The Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars at home laying 6.5 against Joshua Dobbs at quarterback. And, of course, they'll have Derrick Henry and all like that back.
Really cool moment there.
But they won't have – I don't think they're going to have Bud Dupree, right? Bud Dupree's played his last down in Tennessee, right?
I think so. It feels like one of those signings of why there's a new GM or soon to be new GM in Tennessee with the other guy fired a couple weeks ago. Anyway, I'm going to go. Jacksonville's going to win this game. Do they cover is the question. Yeah, I think Jacksonville covers. I'm going to go with the Jags.
Damn you, Alex.
Hey, you get to pick Josh Dobbs. You get to root for Josh Dobbs now.
By Teryl, you never have seen the original Planet of the Apes kind of movies, have you?
No,
the classic with Charlton, Heston. Damn you to hell! Go, Josh, go! I think Jacksonville wins this, but quite honestly, I think Tennessee has the opportunity to keep this close there. So I'll go opposite you, take the 6.5 points here. We got a barn burner here, Alex. Joe Flacco versus Skylar Thompson. The Jets at the Miami Dolphins. All of this minutia aside, the Dolphins are 2.5-point favorites at home against the Jets.
Yeah, that line has moved over the last 24 hours with the quarterback situation there. Oh, man. The Jets do still have a good defense. Skylar Thompson's a quarterback. It sounds like it's going to be Thompson. Not been made official, but I'm betting that's the way this thing's going to go. Give me the Jets. I don't know. Give me the Jets. Flacco. Make some Flacco magic one last time.
Right. And if the Dolphins win this, the Steelers are out.
I know.
Yeah, I'll go on the same side of the fence. I legitimately think Flacco and the Jets can beat this Dolphins team if Thompson has to start. Give me the Jets plus the 2.5 points. I know you'll be tuned into this one here, Alex. The Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. If Houston wins and the Bears lose, that puts the Bears having the number one pick, not only in the first round, but in the second round. That, of course, means the Steelers there as well, too. Colts at home laying 2.5 against the Texans.
Yeah, definitely be tuned. Not even going to watch the Steelers game. I'm definitely tuning into Texans Colts the whole way through. Sam Ehlinger is at quarterback. Give me the Texans.
I'll take the Colts to cover that 2.5. I got to go opposite week here. Buccaneers on the road against the Falcons. Falcons laying 4, and I suppose Buccaneers don't have a lot to gain in this one, right?
Yeah, are they officially resting their guys, though? I can't imagine Tom Brady's playing in this game.
Right.
Maybe he is, but
I don't think they can gain much of anything within here, and I think that's exactly what you're seeing. Falcons laying 4 because of all that.
Right. Might even see some Kyle Trask in this game. I mean, Ritter, that run game against a tough Bucs front. Give me Atlanta still.
This is a setup. I'll take the Buccaneers plus the 4 points. Ravens on the road against the Bengals. The Bengals laying 8 against Baltimore. Well, I guess Huntley's still going to be at quarterback there.
Yeah, he is.
The Ravens going into the playoffs. This is not looking too good for them. I mean, they're in.
Well, if Lamar can get back for the wildcard game, that's really all that matters. Is just his health. I think the Ravens find. Can they match Burrow? That's just gonna be so tough to do without any sort of passing attack. Yeah, give me the Bengals in this one. This is the only thing with the NFL where it gets confusing because the coin flip only applies if it's a 3 seed versus a 6 seed. If it's 4-5, apparently there is no coin flip. Why that is, I don't fully understand.
Okay,
but anyway, it doesn't really matter. I'm going with the Bengals.
I'll take Baltimore to lose, but to cover that. 8 points with Justin Tucker kicking. Tucker will have 4 or 5 field goals in this, so I'm not scared. Give me the Ravens plus 8. Panthers on the road against the Saints. The Saints laying 3.5 at home against the Panthers.
Give me Carolina.
Give me the Saints because I think they've actually been okay overall. You look at adjusted net yards for passing tip on both sides of football. I think they've been okay. Give me the Saints to cover that 3.5. Vikings on the road against the Bears. Need the Bears to lose this one for sure. Need the Texans to win. Vikings laying 7.5 on the road against the Bears.
Catch the fever. Nathan Peterman's back in the lineup. That's exciting. Justin Fields not playing in this one. I don't know what the Vikings are doing. I don't know what's all at stake for them. Regardless, I'm going with Minnesota.
I'll take the Vikings lay to 7.5 with you on this. New England Patriots on the road. Need the Patriots to lose to the Bills. The Bills laying 7.
How do you go against Buffalo? This game's going to mean something for them. It'll be an emotional game, of course. How do you handle that? Sean McDermott talked about, trying to harness that in a positive way and not being so emotional that it's to your detriment. I know it's everything on the line for the Pats as well, but I got to go Buffalo.
I think Buffalo wins this. I think New England keeps it a field goal game. So give me the Patriots plus 7. Giants on the road against the Eagles. The Eagles laying 14 at home against the Giants.
I know the Giants are resting their guys, and the Eagles need to win this game for the 1 seed. Jalen Hurts should be back. I'm not taking the covers too much. I'm going with Philadelphia here.
So you think they'll cover the 14, huh?
The Eagles, yeah, I think they would. That's the line, right?
Right.
Favored by 14.
Okay. All right. I'll take 14 points, even though with the G-men, I'll take the 14. Rams on the road against the Seahawks. The Seahawks are still in trying to get in here, laying 5.5 at home against the Rams.
I'll go Rams in this one. I'll say they at least cover. Baker's played better. K-Makers has looked good. I'll go with the Rams.
The Rams can't wait to get to the all season here. Give me the Seahawks to cover that 5.5 number. The Seahawks will win by 6. Write that down. Exactly 6. Chargers on the road against the Broncos. Broncos actually laying 2.5. I think this is another situation where the Chargers don't have much of anything to gain in here.
Yeah, the Broncos defense has played well this year to their credit. If it wasn't for their offense and Russell Wilson being so abysmal, we'd be talking about that more. You know what? I'll go Denver to finish this thing out.
I'll go Denver to lay the 2.5 with you on this one. The Cardinals on the road against the 49ers. 49ers laying 14 at home against big spreads. 14 at home against the Cardinals. J.J. Watt's last game in the NFL.
Yeah, his last game, his quarterback will be David Blau and no DeAndre Hopkins. That's why the line is as big as it is. Yeah, these lines are huge, but how do you have confidence in what the Cardinals offer right now? I got to go San Francisco with that defense.
Yeah, because of their defense, I'll go with you. I'll lay the 14 in that with you. Dallas Cowboys on the road against the Washington Commanders. The Cowboys on the road laying 7.
Yeah, Sam Howell's first start. So the rookie's getting action late here. You got Ritter, you got Howell. Of course, Pickett's been the guy the majority of the year. Dallas, I don't know incentives for them. Howell's first start, though. I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
Yeah, Parsons, that pass rush against that kid, that's a hard ask right there. Unfortunately, I'll have to go with you. Take the Cowboys late to 7 points. Lions on the road against the Packers. Packers trying to stay in this thing. Do the Packers control their own destiny right now? I think they do, don't they?
If they win, they are in.
Packers laying 4.5 at home. At Lambeau Field against the Lions.
Yeah, at home. Rodgers playing better. You know, this offense a whole lot better. Give me Green Bay.
I'll take Green Bay later 4.5. All right, that circles us all the way back to the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Cleveland Browns on Sunday at 1:00. Be nice to have another 1:00 game, won't it, Alex?
Mm-hmm.
We've been burning it up at the late oil here. Steelers 2.5 point favorites at home against the Browns.
Like I said, I think this one plays well for Pittsburgh's favor. What they want to do, run the ball, not have to put too much on Kenny Pickett. I know we've been predicting some low-scoring games of the 16-14 varieties. I think you can have a random one where the scoring is just a bit more for whatever reason, just the sheer odds of eventually you have to play a game where somebody hits the 20 mark. But I think Pittsburgh's going to run the ball very well. I think defensively, of course, they've been stingy. Watson will be a challenge, but they'll handle Cooper better than the first matchup. Run defense has been better. Long story short, I got Pittsburgh winning this one 27-20, so a bit higher scoring here.
Wow, 27. You trying to put Matt Cannon in the Hall of Fame or what?
I'm trying.
Low scoring game. The over under on this is 40.5 though. I still think it's low scoring game. I think the Steelers be able to move the football at times, but might struggle putting it in the end zone. I think they do enough on the defensive side of football. 19-16 Steelers. Just rubber stamp that every game for me. These last few games, I think 19-16 has been my score. So I think they cover by the field goal. In fact, I think they get a field goal late in this one to break maybe a 16-16 tie. 19-16 Steelers. And will the Steelers get in now, Alex? Will they get the help they need? Will they get in?
I'm trying to think about what I guess in my predictions, I said yes, because I just picked the Steelers, I picked the Jets, and I picked the Bills to win. So I guess by my own logic, I should say yes. I
mean, the way we pick these games, right? Man, can you believe it? I mean, to me, I think it feels like it'd be a disappointment. You don't control all of it here, but the way this thing's shaping up, I feel it'll be a little bit of a letdown if on Monday we're not talking about the Steelers in the playoffs.
Yeah. And again, I think you could argue
the most likely thing is them beating Cleveland, right?
The most likely thing, I think that's
the hardest thing.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I think the hardest part of that leg is them beating the Browns. I think the Bills have a really good shot to beat the Pats, and the Jets Dolphins. That's probably more of a coin flip, but certainly possible the Jets win that game. So yeah, I think the biggest task of all those three elements is Pittsburgh beating Cleveland.
Well, I'll admit I was wrong.
There you go.
Where I at no point did I think this team be competing for a playoff spot in week 18 at any point.
Same here. Yeah, 100%. I was wrong in that aspect as well. We'll see. They still gotta finish the whole thing. If you lose this game and you're 8-9, it's hard to feel too good about. You came so close yet so far away. But understanding again, Kenny Pickett's progression, the progression of this offense as a whole, the young guys, that regardless of what happens, you're going to feel, after the emotions of potentially missing the playoffs go away after a couple of days, you're going to feel good about where this team is at next year.
All right, questions. Bryce, was the call on Cam last Sunday ticky-tack? Yes. However, Cam simply cannot push the pile situation or have prolonged extra stuff after you stop them on third down. Just can't have it. We get on the players for this type stuff, so let's keep some of that same energy as for Cam as well. He says, I love seeing Mika say something to him on the sideline because the best free safety in the game has the cachet to speak up to a guy like Cam. That's leadership. Yeah, I get it to some degree, but I don't think you can call a flag there. Play. Is it as simple as saying Cam cannot get in that situation, Alex?
I don't think so. It's Steelers Ravens. That was a pillow fight compared to the stuff I've seen in the past on that. I thought it was really ticky-tack. Had they called it for the contact with the official, I could have said, okay, letter of the law, you can't contact the official even if it was incidental, fine. But they didn't even call it for that. They called it for whatever he did with the Ravens. And with Minka, I mean, again, Minka didn't understand the moment what happened. He's not seeing a replay, and so I understand him wanting to express that frustration, and Cam saying, hey, I didn't do anything, so that's all water under the bridge. But I wasn't mad at Cam in the moment. Once I saw what happened, I'm not mad at it right now.
Look, I went back and looked at that thing a dozen times, and he was pulled down. He's trying to get up off the pile, and he's getting the business on one. This isn't a Marcus Allen situation or somebody running. We have over the years have had no issue talking about guys and stupid penalties, right? I don't think it's necessary here. All right, number two, concern about Mark Robinson this week is not number of snaps he plays because the Browns play more traditional offense. It's if the Steelers put him on the field when the Browns go multiple tight ends and then go empty from those sets has me worried. Since the Browns have loved to do this in the past, could you see them trying to catch the Steelers with this personnel group this week?
I'm sorry, what was the last part of that? What personnel grouping?
Talking about putting multiple tight ends and then simply going empty from those sets.
I mean, they've done that for years. It's always been successful, and they've actually gone empty quite a bit under Deshaun Watson. So that's always been their MO. It's always worked well, where they're going to go, keep Pittsburgh in base, force those linebackers to cover in space, move their number one receivers inside, and Pittsburgh doesn't travel the corners, and so it's tough to match up. It's hard to play man or zone against those looks. There's downsides there, so certainly it's been done in the past, and I imagine even with a new quarterback, it's going to be the same MO from the Browns.
Right, absolutely. You would think that's going to be some of the stuff that we might see, and maybe an instance where Robinson gets on the field, right?
Yeah. Now again, will he play in base against two receiver sets is kind of the question that I wonder about. Whenever the Browns go one receiver sets, certainly I would expect Robinson to play. Two receiver sets base, will it be Jack? That's what it was last week. We'll have to see.
Brett now writes in two questions. First, Dave has already said that if the Steelers win and get into the playoffs, then Tomlin gets a statue, and I assume that hasn't changed. Look, I know. Will they really build a statue for him outside Acrisure? No, but that's how amazed I will be that if Mike Tomlin gets this team in the playoffs. Second, he says, my question is, how does that assessment change if they lose this last game? We talked about that, Brett, at the top of this show. Mike Tomlin, how Mike Tomlin's job is done on this season, I think we have to find out on Sunday. If they beat the Browns, I think there's two different ways that you talk about this season, quite honestly, and for it to come down. Am I wrong there? I mean, a game against a team that's out of the playoffs, should it come down to this? No, but I think how Mike Tomlin is judged this year does come down. You're either talking about, man, put a statue up for that guy for getting his team in the playoffs, or are you talking about, yikes, first losing season for Mike Tomlin? I mean,
but what if it's a third? What if it's the third pick? What if it's you win the game and you don't get the help you need? How do you react to that?
Well, then I think I didn't think they're going to go 9-8, and then it becomes, don't let yourself get in that position where you needed the help.
Right.
There's that area of the conversation.
Yeah, but that's kind of that awkward tie. It's the metaphorical tie of you won the game, you took care of business on your end in this game, but you didn't get the help you needed, and so you have the non-losing season, but you're not in the playoffs, and it's all kind of an awkward position. But it would come back to what you said. I'm still burned up about that loss to the Jets. That's the only game that gets him mad still, is losing to the Jets back in week 4.
And look, just because I think maybe a statue needs to get built there, I'm not throwing a parade there's no ceremony for that statue going on.
No, you're going to build a statue and not have a ceremony?
No. It kind of silently gets wheeled out there, because you can't, because the bumper sticker conversation continues on, and we're not all about the winning, I mean, I think the guy's done I don't know how to say it properly, Alex, without, making some enemies here. I think he's done a hell of a job to get the team to this point. I really do.
Yeah, I think it's shown the best of Mike Tomlin that, he's never lost that locker room, that guys fight hard, and that's not always, it's not a cliche. And you ask, how do you know that guys have, have continued to fight hard and you haven't lost the locker room? It's based on when you're 2-6 or 3-7 and you rally back. And that's the buy-in, that's the culture change, and that's what the Steelers have built. So again, understanding that, again, I loathe the non-losing season stat as much as anybody. I don't want to be 9-8 and get bounced in the playoffs or not make the playoffs and you feel good about that. They shouldn't have not won a playoff game since 2016, but you understand, where this team was at and hopefully, where they're going and where they'll continue to be in 2023.
He says, second, personally, I'm a little nervous about potentially letting Canada go because it seems that the offense has gotten worse every time they have changed an OC since Todd Haley. Have you seen the same pattern, or are you afraid of the same thing if they let Canada go? I will say this, and I don't know which way they're going to get. Let me tell you, if they make the playoffs, and who knows if they somehow manage to win a game, which seems very unlikely, but I mean, it's been unlikely that they'd be being in this situation. It's hard to let the offensive coordinator go after that. I will say this about if they do change an offensive coordinator. I think a lot of the base stuff that they have installed is not going to go away, because I think you've at least at this point, you've kind of structured some of this stuff, or at least you should, to what Kenny Pickett likes to do. The thing is you should be able to immediately build off of some of this base stuff that Kenny likes to do. So I think a lot of the playbook stays intact, and that's obviously a good thing. I just think that the first big change would be to kind of elongate that, build off that stuff that they've kind of made the identity of themselves at right now.
Are you suggesting that if they move on from Canada, it'd be more likely of an internal promotion of Mike Sullivan?
It would be. Okay. I'm not. I think they should look outside, obviously, but if you're asking me to predict what would happen, I think they would stay in-house with a Mike Sullivan.
Because, I mean, there's the benefit.
If you're going to do that, you're probably going to just stick with Canada.
Yeah, because I don't think Sullivan's offense in a vacuum is the same as Canada's. I mean, obviously, he's in the know, and so there's the continuity there. But
you're going to keep a lot of the base, I think, that's in there.
Yeah, I mean, does Sullivan have that kind of Canada-based offense in terms of all the motion? Are you going to kind of force that in there and ask Sullivan to kind of run an offense that isn't what he runs? Or would you hire an out-of-house guy with a similar system as Canada, maybe just hopefully coached up better and better constraint plays? So you wonder which way that could go.
Look, I look at this two ways. I look at it at what I think they should do, which would be open it up and be open to a Frank Reich or whomever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also paid to give my honest assessment of what I think would happen.
No, I know. But to your point, you're saying if they move on from Canada, they're more likely to stay in-house to keep the offense the same. My point is Mike Sullivan's offense really match Canada's offense?
Well, and that's a good point. I can't answer that.
Because I don't get the sense that if you just talked about what is the core of Mike Sullivan's offense when he ran it with, say, the Giants versus what Canada's run,
it didn't have all that motion and all like that.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, you could just tell Sullivan, keep all this stuff, but then is it really his offense? And is he kind of still running half the Canada offense? I mean, there's a whole debate to be had about that.
Well, then it goes back to the debate, too. A good offensive coordinator builds his offense around personnel, not what what his core principles are.
But as you said, at that point, just keep Canada if you're just going to have basically 90% Canada's offense.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll just, I'm taking it one day at a time right now. And that's kind of where I'm at.
I mean, if you had to guess right now, here we are, week 18. I don't know. I don't know if there is smart money on this, but I don't know. I got this feeling they're probably going to keep Canada.
If you made me choose, I've gone back and forth, and you saw the Fittipaldo report, or I shouldn't say report, I'll get mad about that, but belief that he's 100% gone. I'll say 51% he stays, 49 he goes. It's basically the equivalent. This is the same as choosing where the Bengals and Ravens will play the playoff game. It's a coin flip. I mean, I guess that's the way this thing's going to go.
I would lean slightly to Canada staying, but I don't know what.
Do you think he should be gone? Putting aside what you think will happen, in your opinion, based on the body of work, should he be the OC next year?
I don't think he should be. No. You got to score points, and it goes back to the thing that he has said all season. We got to score more points, and you've got to figure out a way to score more points.
And while I think things have been better, you could really feel that frustration and tension, partly because they were losing, and things are never, kumbaya whenever you're losing, but there really seemed to be a dislike in terms of what he was doing. And so
there's some sort of disconnect, I think, there with him and maybe some players. Is a trust, do they have confidence in what? I guess that's the biggest thing. Do the offensive players in that locker room have confidence that he can be develop them into a top 5 offense in this league?
Right. And we don't know that for sure. My sense would be no. Now, do they feel better now than they did back in week 4 when they were losing and everything sucked? Sure. I'm sure it's better. Losing's a product of frustration and tension, but I don't, is he really the long-term? Is Canada going to be the OC in 3 years? Probably not. So that's kind of your answer.
Thanks for another great season. This is from Ryan Roberts. I was wondering how you would rank the Steelers teams of the last 3 years. 2020 rattled off 11 straight wins, finished 12-4. Let me tell you, I was one of the ones that had the first writing post out there about, is this the worst 11-0 team, of all time? And obviously went into the playoffs. Baker Mayfield lost the game in the playoffs. He says number 2021 started off 3-3 and finished 9-7-1. Then lost to KC. He was at that game. Felt like 82-21. Walking out of that place felt like Game of Thrones episode where Cersei Lannister. I don't know any of these characters. I've not seen one episode of Game. Do you watch Game of Thrones, Alex?
Not one episode. We're the only 2 people left who have not seen it, but.
I think we are. Yeah. You're too busy watching that non-Christmas movie, Die Hard.
I'm going to let that one go.
Was forced to walk the streets next. I don't get it. They shouted shame, shame, shame. We don't get that reference. No. Sorry, Ryan.
What's the question?
Sorry, I hit send too quickly. Maybe I'm a prisoner of a moment, but I might lean to this year as being the best. We shut down care. I guess so many words. He wants to know how would we rank these last 3 seasons of the Steelers teams?
Yeah, I don't know.
I got recency bias here with this year's defense.
Yeah, but I mean, it's hard to argue. I mean, they finished, started 2020, as you said, 11-0. I mean, it's hard to be like, 3-7 start was better than that, even though they limped their way to the finish line. The season's not even over, so You can, rank it however you want. They've all ended in playoff losses in the wild card round. So hopefully this year's better than that. But of course, it's going to take 100 steps to get to that point.
I mean, in 2021, they couldn't throw the football down the field, but man, you get Ben Roethlisberger close late in the game.
Yeah, they won.
In 2020, you kind of knew all along that it was a smoke and mirrors job, but they won games in the NFL, and that's hard to do. I don't know which way.
I mean, 2020's got to be first. They won the North.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can put anything else below
I
that.
suppose. Yeah. 2020. It feels like 2021 really would be next, and then 2022, pending what happens, obviously this weekend.
Yeah, let's end this season before we rank the season. Let's end this season. And if they make the playoffs versus if they don't, that's a matter. One last interruption for you, Dave. The Bengals reportedly trying to whip up no votes from the NFL proposed playoff plan. Obviously, the Bengals not happy with the coin flip and all that stuff. So the saga, the drama may not be over yet. Mike Brown ownership trying to get the NFL to revolt against this proposed plan.
All right. And I did have one other one here that I wanted to hit that came in from the comment section here. Or came in from the comments on the website, the comment form. Dave and Alex, I love the show for many years. First time writer. You guys were killed for being negative about Pickett several weeks ago. You softened your tone after the Ravens game. He could be the future, but we still don't know. Less than 20 points per game does not inspire complete confidence. I hope you guys aren't pandering to your base because I have come to trust your seriousness over time. Sincerely, a concerned fan. Alex, have we pandered to the base off of one game against the Ravens?
I hope not. I guess that's for other people to judge, and we try to be as objective, but I just try to think of it as fair as possible. I'll say this: after the Raiders game, everybody thought I was wrongly, way too harsh on Kenny Pickett. So I feel like I've tried to be as fair as possible with him. I mean, we'll see where it goes, but I just wanted to say I think what he's shown recently has been really encouraging. I thought he played a heck of a game against Baltimore, and just the stakes of that game, being on the road, prime time, your season on the line to make those plays late, and what he did to end the Raiders game as well. We're not trying to say he is or isn't anything, but you have to feel a lot more encouraged and confident by where he's at now than where he was even a couple of weeks ago.
Look, I thought he showed a couple of nice things in that game, and I was kind of questioning. Look, he won the game against the Raiders, and I think there's nothing wrong with that final drive. But up until that point, he wasn't great, and really, the game. The thing I really liked about the game against the Ravens is, man, making the plays out of structure, as many that he did, I thought was impressive, and the fact that he was able to throw the football down the field more than 12 yards past the line of scrimmage and in the middle of the field at that on a couple of those plays was impressive. I liked a little bit of the pocket presence that he showed, a quick turnaround. There were things that were positive in there, but within that, does he need to score more points? Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, my positivity in him clicked up a notch after the Ravens game, and I don't see how it could not. Now, am I anointing him anything? I have said time and time again, come get me after week 6 of the 2023 season.
Yeah, we'll keep watching. What I'm going to do after the season ends, whenever it ends, is go through a complete deep dive into Kenny Pickett season. Go back, watch every throw, try to break this thing down, whatever best way I decide, do a really long, probably half-hour type video on Kenny Pickett. Talk about the good, talk about the bad, and come away with kind of final takeaways and thoughts on his rookie year. So whenever that time comes, watch that video, and hopefully that'll, give a better clarification on my elongated thoughts on Kenny Pickett.
And Scott's question to us was an absolutely fair one, and it's one that still kind of needs to be answered. Is he? It doesn't matter. Can he not be the 50 air yard, deep ball, deadly guy and still be an elite, be a franchise quarterback in the NFL?
Potentially, it's a harder pass, I guess, to your point. And I've talked about the concern. I've even said recently, even I think post Ravens game of, can you be that top 10 type quarterback because you're in an AFC that's going to have top 10 quarterbacks for the next decade. And you got to have somebody that can get pretty darn close to competing with that. He doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes, but he can't be an average quarterback in the NFL and expect the Steelers team to consistently compete and win in the playoffs. So, there's still a concern about that.
All right, one last one. David Rickards writes in, Pat Meyer and Company. Do either of you know where I can purchase a Pat Meyer fathead? He says, in all seriousness, I have been impressed with Meyer this year, blah, 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 blah. My question, given up what we've seen up until now, do you think the team will terminate Canada, even given the offensive improvement? The time of possession has been a key to sustaining the defensive play, in my opinion, he says. I think he'll coach out his contract because they almost never fire guys. If you've discussed at length already, thanks for all your work in a Depot team. Produce best content out there. Well, thank you for that. And yeah, we did kind of go through all that. Point taken. Pat Meyer. They're not moving on from Pat Meyer. I'll tell you that.
Oh no,
I don't think so.
100% chance he's coming back. They're not going to have another offensive line coach, and Myers earned the opportunity to come back. So, he's been really good, really solid, progressing this line, and they've bought in, gotten comfortable with his pass sets and his kind of unique way of teaching things. And he's been a really good presence for them.
All right, let's wrap it up. We've run long, I'm sure, by now at this point.
We're very long. Yes.
All right, you can follow. Look, Hines Ward, James Harrison. We hit on that.
Oh God, yeah. I totally forgot about that. Well, we'll bring that in here last second, I guess. Hines Ward, James Harrison did not make the finalist list for the Hall of Fame. Not surprised.
Not a
Ward.
shocker.
Harrison, I thought had a chance. Not a great sign for him initially, but he'll try again next year.
People don't want to hear us talk about that anymore. We'll pick that up during the off season here as there's more and more talk about Hall of Fame and all. But people are going to know where we come in on Hines Ward already. They ain't going to like that going into the weekend there. So let's table that and just let the news stand alone right now as far as that's concerned. Thank you for listening throughout the season. Hopefully the Steelers season gets extended. We're talking about playoffs come Monday. If not, we'll start wrapping up the season. Several things to talk about regardless, schedule, all that kind of 2023 schedule, free agency. We'll get started on the draft stuff right away. All that. Here's some late stuff from Scott Petrak. Jack Conklin didn't practice for a third straight day. Neither did Denzel Ward, who continued to work on the side. So they might be without a couple more players. We'll see what the injury report shakes out there. Follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, hit the ad-free button upper right navigational bar. Alex and I will be back on Monday talking everything Steelers and more. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.